Welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. I'm your host, Rico Beard. Joining me today, Michigan beat writer Tony Garcia from the Detroit Free Press. Tony's watched and covered Michigan. And guys, believe it or not, the season starts next week. So I know it snuck up on me, snuck up on Tony, snuck up on all of us. The hangover, well, Michigan won the national title. And Tony, I guess the biggest question is, what will be the hangover effect for this team? Or have they already moved on, shook it off, and said the focus is now on the 2024 season?
Well, I'm glad you're having me on because I almost missed the season. Like the summer went by so fast, it would have just gone by. But not a lot of hangover, so it seems, around Schembechler Hall in Ann Arbor. And I think notably that would be because so many key contributors left, right? The team set a program record with 18 guys invited to the NFL Combine, 13 drafted, 14 or 15 right now currently on NFL rosters. So there are too many unproven faces who weren't major contributors. They cannot rest on the laurels of those who came before them. And even we were talking to someone like Wesley Walker, a transfer safety from Tennessee last week, and he was saying, he's like, hey, they honestly don't even talk about the national championship that much. It's just kind of, it's just business. Now he's been to Georgia Tech, to Louisville, to Tennessee. Michigan's now his fourth program. And he was sort of talking about how practice just operates a little differently. So from the sounds of it, business as usual.
Business as usual. How different are the practices, or are they even different with a new head coach and new staff? I think like 7 staff members from last year are gone. You got Sharon Moore now, the head man in charge in Ann Arbor. Is everything still the same? Does he run the program the same way that Harbaugh did, or has he added his own little touches to this?
Well, his favorite joke recently is that he just likes to play more music. But other than that, it's kind of status quo. It is a little interesting. I think Sharon Moore's walking a fine line of, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? 40-3 the last 3 years, national championship. He just learned under the head coach, who was the quarterback, who played for Bo, right? Who knows all the Michigan traditions. He's like, let's just kind of keep it this way. That said, everything was not peaches and cream and sunshine and rainbows the last few years. So he's not trying to only walk that line, and he's trying to say, hey, I can't be Jim Harbaugh. I just have to be Sharon Moore. It makes it a little more difficult to see who the real Sharon Moore is when the players he's bringing to Big Ten Media Day are all seniors, right? It's Makari Page and Max Bredesen, these guys, good players. These are not the Mason Grahams, the Will Johnsons, the Kenneth Grants, the Colston Lovelands. And just because only seniors were captains before, I don't know that he had to keep that. And that's just one example. There's a few more where it seems like, the M on the hat, he's now wearing the little M, which Bo wore, which Jim wore, the head coach. It's just a slightly different block M. So he's kind of leaning into these Harbaugh isms, but at the same time saying, hey, my program, doing it my way. So I think he's trying to get the best of both worlds. Time will tell, but from practice, it seems like just same old.
All right, well, it's going to be a little difficult for him. I mean, coming off the national title, a lot of players from Michigan went into the NFL draft. A lot got drafted, I believe, like a record number. And let's just start with the main position. J.J. McCarthy goes in the first round, goes to the Minnesota Vikings, leaves a void at QB for Michigan. Tony, for what I'm reading and from what I've been watching, do they legitimately have 5 guys who are up for this quarterback, or is that just a lot of coaching hyperbole?
They are masters of the coaching hyperbole in Ann Arbor. You know that very well, Rico. Not 5 guys. Not 5 guys. I would say right now it's certainly down to 3. So Jaden Davis, the true freshman, was never really in the mix. Kirk Campbell was kind of saying that. Next year, look out. He could compete. There's a lot to like there. Jaden Genigal also sort of seems like the odd man out. So it's either going to be Alex Orji, the junior, who's a front runner, dual threat guy, Jack Tuttle, a 7th-year graduate transfer from Indiana. This is his 2nd year in the program. Or Davis Warren, a senior from California, kind of more of a pocket passer. Warren, you kind of saw the arm in the spring game, hit a couple deep balls that were nice. Orji had a 21-yard touchdown run, which is sort of what he can do, and Tuttle was injured, so he didn't play. But it seems to be those 3 guys. I might almost go with it's down to two to Orgy and Warren. I think they really like Tuttle as sort of the second guy behind whichever one wins that job, because they need to find the identity of what this offense is going to be, right? If it's going to be Orgy, are we going to be more run based? How are we going to make sure we're just moving the sticks sort of thing? Or if it's Warren passing, are we going to keep the same 50-50 balance as they tried last year? Pass, run, going to have to lean on the running back more because Warren is not terribly mobile. But Tuttle is a no offense to him, a very poor man for my money. It's J.J. McCarthy. He's going to make a lot of safe plays. JJ wasn't known for that, but he can, and he can extend the play a little more than he's given credit for. And so that's kind of the way I see them trying to walk this.
Where did Warren come from? I mean, because, when you think Michigan, you think quarterbacks, they come in with a lot of hype, and he just kind of, from the outside, Tony, he just kind of appeared on the team, and he just became that gutty guy who just stuck it out, and now he's about to get his opportunity. Yeah,
well, the Hapsy class of 2020, right? So just COVID and maybe a little lost in the shuffle, and there was a lot of change around that time. That was the year before JJ's coming in, right? And so they're already sort of looking ahead. I think they had kind of missed on the quarterback of that class. You got guys, Shea Patterson's on the way out. You got Milton here. So there were a lot of moving parts. And Davis Warren was kind of just the guy who came in, put his head down, and really just stayed the course. I remember a few days after the national championship, the team went to Mott, and they were kind enough to invite me. And so I was going around the hospital with Harbaugh and a couple of the members. JJ McCarthy was supposed to be there that day. He actually got sick the night before. But Davis Warren was one of those guys, even last year. And just really good guy, kind of a fixture within the locker room. And he was saying, and I was leading him. I was thinking that he was just going to say, yeah, I'm kind of moving on, going to find my level. He was like, no, I think I can compete here. And he said he was sticking around, whether that was a starting job, backup role, he was going to compete. Wow. So we're here now, and he's in the mix.
So, we kind of touched upon it for Michigan fans out there who are kind of waiting to see what will each quarterback bring. Like, what will the offense look like if this guy starts?
Well, if Alex Orgy starts, then I think there's going to be a lot of RPO. There's going to be a lot. Now, I don't know that they're going to want to try to keep him in the pocket, quick read sort of thing. And then should something fall apart, that's when you use your legs, right? I don't know that they want to just design rollouts and boots and all these things. That might be a little much for someone who has thrown one pass in college, right? He's 1 for 1 for 5 yards through 2 years. They had no problem trusting him to run the ball. He ran 21 times past couple years, 3 touchdowns. It's in the spring game, it did leave a little bit to be desired. He was less than 50% on passes with more than 10 air yards downfield. So it might have to be some bubble screens to Samaj Morgan. I'm writing about him right now. Actually, it'll be up later today. Colston Loveland, obviously, for my money, is going to have to be the focal point. I think that's for any quarterback, but certainly if it's Alex Orgy, someone who I'm not sure can quite stretch the field in the same way Warren can, where you might have a Frederick Moore on the outside, a Tyler Morris in the slot, who these are the guys who are next in line at receiver behind a couple of seniors here. I'll say this stat here, Rico, because I didn't know this before a little bit this morning. Cornelius Johnson is a top 10 wide receiver in Michigan football history. I wouldn't have known if he was top 40.
Really?
And top 10 all time in receiving yards. And Roman Wilson, after last year's top 20 now. So these were proven guys. These were like people who had done it for years on end. And Cornelius, he was a chain mover, right? He was just first down, ball at the sticks. And there's 100 receptions that now need to get divvied up again.
It's maybe a little bit ahead of your time, but it reminded me a lot of Jason Avant when he played for Michigan. He was just that backbreaker where it was 3rd and 6, he would get 7. 3rd and 8, he would get 9. He would just get just enough. He was never the flashy receiver. Went on to have a pretty good career in the NFL, especially with the Eagles. So
yeah, he did. He's a sideline reporter now for the team,
yes.
and I mean I'll see him around. That was right in my heyday. I'm from Ann Arbor, so I grew up big fan of Jason Avant, and he did quite well. That was his thing for sure.
So all right, so Orgy's there. So if it's Warren, what's this offense going to look like?
If it's Warren, it might look a little bit more like it has the past couple years, or that's what they would like, right? Try to find a bell cow running back, make sure you're ahead of the sticks, and just sort of dink and dunk your way. I mean, you can take the top off a little bit, but I don't know how much Warren can really run. My concern, if you went with Warren, is that one reason Michigan was so successful in recent years is Blake Corum, who was just getting just consistently in 2nd and 6, consistently getting you 3rd and 3. And so you're not in all these 3rd and longs all the time. Now they actually were a little bit last year, and JJ McCarthy was remarkable at it when they were. But if Michigan is not consistently in short down and distance, favorable positions, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. I think it's going to be a long season. But if it is Warren, then you're going to have to, I think they're going to need to find a true complementary running back, because it's not going to, their teams are not going to have to respect Warren's legs. I think they're going to stack the box early. If Warren's the quarterback, they're going to say, hey, I mean, try to run it past us. And once you can't, they're going to make Davis Warren try to beat them with their arm.
And, Tuttle is kind of Davis Warren light.
I think he is. A few months ago, I was saying that I think Jack Tuttle should get a real look at this starting job, like maybe be considered the front runner when everyone was running with Alex Orji. I have sort of leaned that way now, but it's because why do you have a 7th-year guy in the room? Why do you have someone who is going to who wants to be this quarterback in this sort of system? Because Michigan, for my money, is going to have maybe the best defense in the country. You want someone who is just going to, field position, not turn the ball over, not go 3 and out, right? Just someone you can trust, someone who knows how to run an offense. Jack Tuttle has backed up Michael Penix. He's backed up JJ McCarthy, right? I mean, he's been the understudy for NFL guys before. He knows how to run. Knows how to run pro style, and he can run and make some plays himself. So I wouldn't count him out. I think a lot of people are. I'm still intrigued. I think the issue is he's been hurt. He was hurt in spring. We asked Sharon last week if he was dinged up again this summer. During fall camp. Sharon kind of talked it off. I can't report officially that he is. From what I'm hearing, it sounds like he's not 100% right now either, and so that could set him back.
Wow. Yeah. I just did some quick look. He was part of the 2017 class.
7th year guy.
You know who I think was a part of that class? It was Tua.
the quarterbacks in the same class. And now Tua's looking at almost looking at a contract extension in the NFL.
Right. Because I think
Justin Herbert as well in that same class.
Yeah, Brock Purdy was somewhere around there too. So just kind of put things in perspective of how long he's been in college.
Yeah,
and what the other quarterbacks have done.
And last year, quickly, Rico, he was 15 of 17 passing, right? 1 touchdown. He ran 4 times for 35 yards. One of them was like a 20-yard scramble. That's efficient passing and a little bit of legs. You don't need a ton more than that. This team's going to have to win 21-17, 23-20 in a lot of these big games.
You know what, Tony, it's funny because you just led me into my next topic. First of all, Tuttle to me kind of seems like, look, almost a safety valve, the in case of emergency break glass. If this experiment fails, we know what we have in him and we can just power it down, because I know it won't be as a lot of explosive plays, but with Michigan's defense, will the philosophy basically be, okay, guys, let's get to 21 and we could probably choke out most of our opponents and win these games?
Yeah, it's been, similar. They had a little bit,
not quite Iowa-like, but similar to how Iowa has won in the past few years. Offense, not explosive. It's just enough to get the first down, eat the clock, lean on the defense, lean on your special teams, and win the game.
this offense is going to be better than Iowa.
Okay.
Period.
No, I mean, yes, I said not quite Iowa.
Right. Yes. No, but I mean, I think in that vein, in that same general philosophy, right? I mean, trestle ball, right? We've seen this is not new around the Big Ten. Mark D'Antonio won with it for years in East Lansing, and I think it could be very similar to that, which is why I'm with you, Rico. Jack Tuttle should be the second guy behind whichever way they want to run this offense. Are you going to go with orgy and more quick strike stuff, spread it out, run the ball, or are you going to be more pro style with Warren, sit in the pocket and sort of try to slice and dice the defense? Tuttle can do a little bit of both of those, and the coaches were telling us they will have to sort of. I mean, there's a base offense, of course, and then packages off of that for each guy. I mean, there's 11 days, 12 days, something like that until the opener. It's really coming up on it. So they got to make their choice.
So will this be a position that's, I guess, constantly rotating around? Will it come to a point where Sharon Moore just says, you are my guy, I'm rolling the dice with you, and that's it? Or is it, a quick hook, I'm going to bring in this guy if you fail, because you look at the Michigan schedule, you got Texas coming up in game number 2. Is it safe to say, Tony, that whoever starts against Texas is the quarterback?
They want him to be. Whoever's starting against Texas is who they are going with. And the expectation, the way Kirk said it to us, is he doesn't want anybody looking over their shoulder. Once you win the job, he's like, we coaches are confident in our evaluation. If we think someone's going to win the job, it's their job. It's not like, yes, as they like to say, the depth chart is fluid. It's always moving, always shape shifting. But quarterback is the one where they want this much separation. It's not this CB2 or the nickel where it's different guys every day. They
won't be hit with the ors on this or this or this.
Yes, Connor Cook or Damian Terry or Tyler O'Connor or Theo Day or whoever it was. No, I don't think we're going to have ors. I think Michigan doesn't even do depth charts. I would love a depth chart, but no ors. I think it will be, and Kirk Campbell said it. He said, because my colleague, Reiner Saban, asked him a great question about it, just because at Old Dominion, where he first was an offensive coordinator about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a quarterback competition. They chose one guy. It seemed to be the wrong move, right? He didn't end up winning the job. They went the other way about 5-6 weeks later. And so the question Reiner asked Kirk was, I mean, how confident are you? Like, what is, and you're asking me, it's a great, like, what's the balance, right? What's the hook versus how long we're just going to trust it? And they want to go with the latter. They want to go with the trust factor as long as they can until it's apparent.
All right, Donovan Edwards, he's on the cover of the EA Sports college football game. Is he going to be able to step right into Blake Corum's shoes and just carry this team the way that Corum did?
No, he will not. He's not the same style of runner, number one. Number two, he is running behind an entirely new offensive line, all 5 pieces gone in the NFL. And number three, I think that there's better balance with Donovan and Kalel than Blake and Donovan. And what I mean by that is giving the ball to Blake was just so tempting. There were very few scenarios, if I was the coach, where I was like, well, I'd rather have Donovan in here than Blake. I actually see it the other way. There are times where I think Kalel's skill set will be better suited for what this Michigan offense wants to do. And now Donovan's a great kid. I love what he's had to say this offseason. He really humbled himself, like not just said it, but did it. And it's hard to believe when you're getting all these accolades and you're on the cover and everything. Donovan had no intention of being in Ann Arbor this year. He was gone. He was gone in his mind. And then he really struggled last year. I mean, everybody remembers the national championship where he has 2 touchdowns, 100 yards, couple 40-yard bombs. Before that, in 14 games, he had 113 rushes for 393 yards and 3 scores. He was the least efficient running back in the Power 5. Now, there's the one side of the coin that says he was never able to get into a rhythm, and he's been preaching that and how much he likes getting into a rhythm. Now that he's the focal back, might get 15, 20 carries a game. Sure, we could see some of those 100-yard games again. But I just don't he's not a shifty runner. He's a one cut runner. He needs space to work. I think there's nothing wrong with using him more in the slot, motioning him out of the backfield, trying some tosses. I don't like the power run game with Donovan Edwards between the tackles, so I don't think he's gonna just.
So kind of how the Lions use Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Not David Montgomery. He is not a between the tackle runner. I mean, I think last year kind of bore that out. He had, I don't have the PFF numbers in front of me. I think he had 14 first downs all year on 100 some touches. I mean, it was striking. He had 30 catches for 280 yards. I mean, and you're a running back matched up with linebackers, and you're not even averaging 10 yards a catch. It was a strikingly down year for Donovan. I think he'll be better. He will be improved. But to think he's gonna, I mean, Blake Corum just ran for 28 touchdowns last year. That is not gonna happen.
Well, speaking of replacing people, Tony, you just touched upon it. 5 new offensive linemen. I mean, you've had a top offensive line for the last 2 years running. Can they keep this going? Because anybody who knows football knows that, hey, I always say novices look at the quarterback and the flash positions, but anybody who knows, it's all about the trenches. If you can move the people forward, life is easy for your quarterback, your play action works, everything falls into place. If the offensive line is horrible or it's bad, it's lacking, it leads to a long year where you get people injured and the offense just doesn't click. Will Michigan be able to strike gold for, I guess, a third year running and just going out into the portal or getting some of these younger guys and just putting a whole new 5 out there?
That is, I think, the $1 million question. And for what it's worth, it would be the 4th year running because they won 2 Joe Moore awards and then were the finalists last year. So, and which is all 3 years. Sharon Moore was in charge of this unit. He's now the head coach, but Grant Newsome has moved from tight ends to offensive line, and they are the way people used to talk about Sharon Moore 3 years ago. It's the same way with Newsome. Like, this is the next guy. This guy's got it. There's just something different. Now, it's one thing to say, one thing to do, right? And I mean, you don't just hockey line change an entire offensive line and just roll it out like it's perfect. Now, one slight benefit is the line that's starting now. This was the second string line last year. So Greg Crippen, who I project as the starting center, has been next to Gio El-Hadi, the reserve guard who was behind Zach Zinter and Trevor Keegan for years. Miles Hinton, who's now going to start at left tackle. He started 5 games last year, kind of lost that job. He was working with this line. Andrew Gentry and Jeff Percy. These guys were in the class of 2020. They're about to be 50 or 2019, maybe 2019. I mean, these are 5th-year guys. One of them went on a mission and came back. I mean, they've been around the program a long time. So, and they're all saying that. I think they have a sneaky suspicion that this offensive line could be pretty good because for the first time since, COVID, people aren't going in saying, oh, well, this is the best line in America. And they're like, okay, we'll see. We'll see about that. So, I mean, I think it might be a la last year, because if we remember, last year's line was not what it was in 2022, where they were just bulldozing people.
Right.
The run game struggled a little bit at times last year. It was nothing like the year before. JJ had to make some more plays. The defense was even better, and so there was enough there. But that's why they didn't win the award. I think this might be more like that line, like a very good line, but not the best in the nation. I think there's just too many moving pieces.
All right, let's flip over to the other side of the ball, the defense. This is, I guess, the strongest part of this team for this upcoming season. I mean, led by a couple of first, preseason, first teamers. What do you perceive this Michigan defense to be? Now, they lost a lot of people going into the draft as well, but they did maintain a few key pieces, including Will Johnson back in the secondary, who I think on the video game is the highest ranked player.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the highest rated player in the country, projected as a top 5 pick in this year's NFL draft. So is Mason Graham, the defensive tackle. He's projected anywhere. I mean, I've seen someone have him at 4. I've seen 8, 10. Kenneth Grant, the other defensive tackle, is another first round projection. Rod Moore, a safety. Now he's out for the year. He would have been a first round grade as well. You got Makari Page, who's another safety who's expected to go high. I guess we can sort of break it down by. I mean, there's not quite the depth. So on the defensive line, the last 2 years, they've had what they've liked to refer to as the rally group. So they will just hockey style line changes, all four guys. And I mean, if Chris Jenkins is not in, then that means Mason Graham is in, right? And if Braden McGregor wasn't in, then Derek Moore was in, which is someone who they're expecting to have upwards of maybe 10 sacks this year. That the second line this year is not quite as deep as it was last year, but I think this first line is better than last year. Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. I don't know if I'm qualified to make this type of statement, but here I go anyway. I think they're the best. They might be the best defensive tackle pairing this century in college football. I mean it. I mean these two are unlike anything I've ever seen. Like Aaron Donald is a stretch, but like just a little below it for Mason Graham, and Kenneth Grant is just 340 pounds of beast. And so I think they're going to control the line of scrimmage. I think their secondary is super deep. They just added in a 72-hour period, they added 4 defensive backs. Jaden Mangum, who you're quite familiar with at MSU. I mean, he was one of Michigan State's best DBs last year. I don't know how much he's going to see the field. That's how deep this secondary is. You got Amir Hall. Yes, he's from Albany, an FCS school, but he was an All-American. You got this Wesley Walker from Tennessee, a 6th-year guy, 2,000 snaps at like SEC levels. I mean, in the linebacking core, Ernest Hausman starting his second year for Michigan. He backed up Michael Barrett and Junior Colson at the Mike and the Will last year. He's seen both sides. Jayshawn Barham, a really athletic linebacker, if you remember last year from Maryland. I mean, just all over the field when he was playing Michigan. They grabbed him up too. And so, I mean, this is an elite defense. If they weren't playing Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, USC, I mean, all these high-flying offenses, which just inherently will score points, I would pick them maybe to lead the country defensively again. I think that highly of this group.
Well, it's funny because you mentioned that, and you look at Michigan's schedule, and let's face it, for many years, that's been one of the big knocks that they didn't play. They really had like a 2-game schedule would be Penn State and Ohio State, and then 10 other teams that they would just dominate. Well, they ramped it up a little bit with the expanded Big Ten. Texas coming in week 2. I guess, how do you see this team scheduling wise? Is this one of those where the team may actually be better than what the record actually says?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they are the right 9-3, then I think they're in 10 into the college football playoff. 10-2, I think, of course, and they're in. And once you do that, I mean, you've watched what Tom Izzo likes to do with MSU hoops for years, right? I mean, schedule hard, right? Get battle tested, because now it's a different format, right? Before you couldn't afford those losses, so it was like, don't even take the chance. We're just going to play these teams we have to play, and we just got to win the games we got to win. Now it's a little bit of a new calculus, right? It's like, hey, if we can steal one here, then we're playing with house money a lot of the rest of the way. But should we fall to Texas, their top 3-5 team preseason, we're not going to be too hurt. And so the ramp up period is very different for Michigan, as they're starting to. I mean, like you said it. I mean, their toughest game the last few years has been UConn or Hawaii. I mean, just nothing. Right. Colorado State. They have not had a legitimate non-conference game in years. That changes week 2. Heck, that changes week 1. I've been telling everybody, watch out for Fresno State. Yeah. Don't just be looking at Texas. I mean, Fresno State would have been their toughest non-conference game in the last 4 or 5 years. And so, no,
it would have been, and I've told a lot of people that. I mean, it's going to tell a lot to me of how quickly Sharon Moore can get this team focused and not looking towards week 2 like most of the fans are, because Fresno State can come in there. I'm trying to think the coach there, but he's been around for a while. They run they try to score a ton of points. You know, it may not be with names of people that you know, but they're not going to just sit there and quietly just come in, take the check, and walk away. So am I saying upset alert? No, I'm not. But what I am saying is it could be one of those games that by the third quarter, you're like, okay, I thought we'd have left and gone and done something else, and now we're still sitting here because we're only winning by 10 points and they have the ball and they're driving down the field.
I haven't seen a line. I haven't seen anything, and I'm already leaning Fresno State and under. That's just the gut feel with this. And Fresno State, I mean, they were a top 25 team last year. And yes, their coach Jeff Tedford did actually have to step down for some health concerns. But Tim Skipper has been around a long time there. He served as an interim before when this happened. And so I expect them to, I think they'll just kind of keep it moving. I mean, they got the quarterback, Mikey Keene. They just added, his name is escaping me, but he was a 5-star defensive end recruit for USC last year. He was the second rated freshman in America, and he just transferred to Fresno State. I mean, so they've got experience and they've got dudes. So
now it's funny you speak of Vegas, and Vegas has Michigan, I think, currently at 8.5. So it's that, because a lot of people see the 3 main games for them and say, well, okay, well, it's Texas, it's Oregon, it's Ohio State, but they may lose those 3, but they can win all the rest. The Vegas is saying, well, there may be another slip up in there. So that's where they're leaning towards the 8.5. I guess two-parter. One, if you're Sharon Moore, one of the 3 games that I just mentioned was the Buckeyes. Can he keep the magic rolling with the Buckeyes? Because I do believe if Michigan beats the Buckeyes again this year, then Ryan Day will have the ultimatum. You better go out and win the national title or you're fired.
I'm so glad you said that. We had this. We had a long debate about this on our podcast. Quick plug, hail yes, on the Detroit Free Press. But I mean, we were how it's like Ryan Day, 93% win percentage, right? I mean, 11-1 every year, but he really is on. I mean, it is a make or break for him, which is why I just think it's going to be so hard for Michigan to go into Columbus this year and win it. I mean, if you look at what Ohio State did, I mean, all they poured into the offseason with Quinshon Judkins and Caleb Downs and Will Howard, right? I mean, the bags they're throwing at JT Tuiomale and Denzel Burke and all these guys, they're getting Emeka Egbuka, all these guys they're getting to stay. They got the running back stable back. I mean, they're loading up. This feels like Michigan's year last year, right? Like that one, right. Like nobody in Columbus has gold pants, right? None of the senior class, at least. And that's unheard of there. And so game in Columbus, I mean, just do or die for, I mean, not for their program, but for this era of their program, certainly. And I just, yeah, I mean, if the game was in Ann Arbor, I would probably reserve and say I need to see. It would be so difficult to see Michigan going down there. And what I keep cautioning Michigan fans against, and they have deserved their flowers and deserve to celebrate the flipping of this rivalry like they've done. Mm-hmm. They've still only won in Columbus one time in 2 decades. Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see if we can do it again, maybe, like more than just the one time.
But if not, you get an entire class in Columbus that can say, when they're sitting around talking about how many times did you beat Michigan, they got to go to the back. You know what? Go get me a drink of water. Go get me a drink, because you're not allowed to be a part of this conversation. You never won. Almost victories don't count. So, yeah, I do think that if Day loses this game, his ultimatum is you got to win the national title, because at least we can say, yeah, we won the Natty, but you cannot lose another year in a row, because, yeah, you thought it was going to be last year with all the things that were hanging on. You know, Harbaugh wasn't there for that game. Sharon Moore was. It was in Ann Arbor. They had a chance. They drove in that final drive, but they did not get it done. And then Michigan, to add insult to injury, if you're a Buckeye fan, then goes on and win the national title. Now, we're going to talk about that now. The NCAA has already come down with 1 penalty on Michigan. I guess the bigger transgression, the counter stallions and everything that went with the sign stealing, that appears to be headed to Ann Arbor, and the final decision appears to be coming down. Tony, it can be coming down as we speak. It's inevitable. How does Michigan handle the impending doom and gloom of what the NCAA is going to say? Or is it just one of those where they feel their case is so strong that the NCAA is just going to really they have nothing to hold them against, and they're just going to move on and forget all about this?
I think it depends who you talk to within the department and within the football program. Specifically in Schembechler Hall, as it pertains to the football program, they are, as they have been last year, as they were the year before, head down, eyes closed. We're here for football. Don't bother us with any of the rest of this. Now, those I've talked to in the athletic department are they were given the draft notice of allegations a few weeks ago. You're right, and the expectation is that this full NOA. When the details will come out for whatever it is that is alleged to have happened with Connor Stallions, you're right. That could come any day. Now, as far as how that affects this season, I don't know that it's going to, because if you recall how athletic director Ward Manuel handled the situation with Jim Harbaugh, it wasn't until after the negotiated resolution fell through with the NCAA that he handed down a punishment to him. And so he's not going to try to jump the shark and just confess and say, oh, here's what we're going to do. I mean, Michigan is going to play this out, and they're going to try to extend it as long as they can. They don't want to get punished, and just try to push this thing down the line. I would be really surprised if this year's team was affected in any way other than just the distraction and the air of it all. But I mean, as Kalel Mullings, the running back behind Donovan Edwards, told us a few weeks ago, he's been here 5 years now, linebacker, running back. He's seen it. He's like, it's always something. He's like, we're just used to it. He's like, this is always going on. So, I mean, for them, it really is kind of business as usual, because this is nothing new. They're already on probation. They've already been investigated by the NCAA. And the players are just like, nah, that's not us.
Well, it's funny because it is possible, if you think about it like this, Tony, that for 2 consecutive years, the head coach of Michigan could possibly not be on the sideline for the first week. The reason why I say that, Sherrone Moore was suspended last year. He's up for, I think level two charges. The problem is, because he was suspended last year, the level 2 gets bumped up to level 1, which means that he could possibly not be there. You had the whole deleting of text messages where he then came out and said, well, I can't wait for people to read them. And the question that I had was, okay, if it was, happy birthday, Tony, then I don't delete that. I don't get rid of that. Hey, Tony, where are we eating at? I don't get rid of those messages. It's like, yeah, here's my phone. Take a look at that and see. I guess, does he, because you've talked to him, does he see how people outside the program could perceive that as, well, why did you delete your text messages if there was nothing wrong?
I asked him that. Well, not about the text message. He was asked all these questions, right? Mm-hmm. And like you said, he was just, I haven't seen the text. No, we haven't seen it yet. Right. So I don't know what they say. But we asked him, and he's like, hey, I can't wait for them to come out. So when they come out, they come out, and then we'll see what they said. But then I did ask him if he is concerned about just the national perception of the brand, about the way people are operating in Ann Arbor. He seemed very laissez-faire, very like I think what he said explicitly was, we can't control what other people think. Now, what I wanted to say is you can control what you do, but that's a separate point. But he said they're not. I mean, if other teams, coaches, fans, the college football at large is going to say these things and feel these things, then that's what they're going to say, and that's what they're going to feel. And that was his answer. So basically, it's kind of like the heel turn in wrestling. They're just going to embrace being the villain now. Yeah, if you remember last year, Michigan versus everybody. They don't mind. What they say is, if you're not in Schembechler Hall, you don't see how we're operating. You're not one of us. If you're not with us, you're against us, sort of thing. And so that's just, that's the company line. That's the party line. They've been doing it since day one, and really there has been no switch up from that.
Tony, just a little bit of speculation before we wrap this up. You followed this team and all the investigation that's going on. What do you think the outcome is going to be?
Oh.
Oh, come on. You didn't think it was going to be this easy, did you?
Yeah, no, I should have known. Man, I don't know if I don't know that I had actually thought to the final moment about what it's going to be. It's not going to be a death penalty. I think their national championship is safe. I wonder. There's just, man, Rico. I'd love to give you a great answer. There's so much of the NOA I haven't seen yet, and I don't. So
trust me. You basically describe all of our pre-show meetings because it's like, okay, what do you think is going to happen? And it's from the whole slap on the wrist to, well, there's reports out there that says they could be vacating games and this, that, and the other. And I think it's going to fall somewhere in the middle. I think that probably the best and smartest thing, I don't know who was the person who did this, but whoever got into the ear of Jim Harbaugh and said, hey, maybe we won't have you at the opening game as the honorary captain. Let's not spit in their face until they hand us the punishment, and then we can do whatever. But right now, they're kind of in control. I thought that was the best move that anybody – I don't know who came up with it, but kudos to you. Very smart and forward thinking.
Rico, I think they lucked into it.
Oh, really?
That's what I was told, because I was asking some people, because I was asking people around the program, the department. Because I wanted to find out who made that call, and just for my own curiosity. And I was told it came from Jim Harbaugh's side, who said, and it was not because Jim doesn't want to get Michigan in trouble. You could see he does not care about ruffling the NCAA's feathers. Justin Herbert's injury, what I was told, took like a little setback. And they were genuinely concerned about who's going to be the quarterback. And so Jim said he didn't want to. Now, it's not the way Sharon Moore painted it. Is he's like, oh, he wants to be in the foxhole with his guys, right? And like, I don't know that it's that, but it was, whoa, we might be kind of caught off guard here. I think I got to stay back and I got to handle this. So whether it was that or not, you're totally right. Jim Harbaugh not coming back is, I think, the best case scenario for Michigan. Otherwise, the NCAA would just continue to try to drop this hammer. But to get to the question, there might be some sort of postseason ban, maybe in the future, that sort of thing, like a year or two, no playoff now. But I don't even know if the NCAA has jurisdiction like that over the CFP, because they're separate entities. Or maybe it would be like no postseason, like Big Ten title game. I don't know, but something like that. They're not. I don't think they're going to go retroactive, but it's not going to be. It's going to be more than what just happened with the COVID-19 and just probation and a couple recruiting restrictions.
Tony, appreciate you coming on. Before we let you go, give me your prediction. Final record. Let's play the win-loss game.
Yeah, final record.
They're going to find you and they're going to attack you because you didn't say, national title.
Well, I did last year. So I did last year. So
that was last year.
I know. So I've been waffling. I think I'm finally going to plant the flag at 10-2. That's higher than a lot of people, but I haven't seen them lose a couple games in a couple years. You know what I mean? And it's just, they got some of these tough games they have at home. Washington, that's on the road, but I mean, they're really turning things over. I think that's not as difficult as it once seemed.
You know what the funny thing is? Washington is not. Please don't get it wrong. Penix is gone. DeBoer is gone. But for some reason, and this will probably end with now that you have 4 teams from the West Coast, when the Big Ten teams cross the Mississippi River, it is normally
ugly
disaster for all of the teams.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's very true. I mean, Michigan. I mean, we've seen. I think like the most recent example I have, and I keep bringing it up because we covered them together for a while. I mean, when Michigan State went to Arizona State, right? You just play an ugly. And when they just went to Washington, they just got their teeth kicked in. But that was a better team. But I think Michigan handles that. I think they are able to take care of that. USC, I think they should be able to handle as well. Their defense. I mean, they thank God for them. They got rid of Alex Grinch because, I mean, I don't know that he could organize a middle school defense. I mean, it's just preposterous how he's been along to coordinate defenses this long. But they're still getting it rolling at USC under Lincoln Riley. And I mean, they got to come to Ann Arbor. That's a tough task. So there's 2 of them. Then you just got to get one of the three: Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, and that's a big ask. I think it's Texas. I think that's the one. It's still early in the season. Playing in the big house. I mean, now it's not Tuscaloosa or Georgia or something. It's not easy. They haven't lost there since 2020. So
you're calling for the upset of Oregon. I like that.
No, they beat Texas.
They beat Texas.
They beat Texas. I apologize. I think they get it because it's so early in the season. I can't go with the upset of Oregon. That one, I think I got Oregon and Ohio State going to the Big Ten title game. But 10-2, I think they'll be 8 or 9. And really, I'm just kind of trying to manifest it for myself. I'd love them to be like a 9 seed and get a trip to an SEC school like Ole Miss or something for the first round playoff. That'd be fun. So
nice.
We'll try to thread that needle.
All right. Tony Garcia, you can read us. He's Michigan beat writer for the Detroit Free Press. Make sure you check him out. He follows the team closely. Tony, appreciate your time. Also, listen, what's the podcast you got?
Hail Yes, a Detroit Free Press podcast about University of Michigan athletics.
All right. So make sure you check him out. Tony, I appreciate your time and going over just the breakdown of Michigan because, season starts next week, folks. We're in week 0, which I don't know why it's not week 1, but that's a whole nother argument in and of itself. But Michigan, they kick things off Fresno State Saturday noon at the Big House. Tony, appreciate your time. Thanks for listening and watching the 5 Star Zone. Keep liking, subscribing. Tell your friends. We'll be back with a breakdown of more Big Ten teams later this week.